Finally, another book with maps! Oh, hello Federal Trade Commission. I just wanted to let you know that in compliance with your 2013 update entitled .com Disclosures, that the book I'm about to discuss and review was sent to me free of charge by a publisher in exchange for my honest review. So, if you're watching, I hope you enjoy. Alrighty, so today I want to talk about The Glass Sentence by S.E. Grove, which is a beautiful book with beautiful maps about map making and this gorgeous cover which has this filmy dust jacket with a map on it and the characters that are prevalent in the book hiding underneath. I want to start by saying that there is a person named Megan Whalen Turner of the New York Times and the best-selling author of A Conspiracy of Kings on the back cover who compares this book to Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials series and how good those were. I read those a very, very long time ago and don't really remember a lot about them, but I do remember that the world was sound. Philip Pullman built a world very, very intricate that you could definitely believe, and this book is very, very similar. The Glass Sentence is set for the most part in 1891, and that is about a century after what is known as the Great Disruption. And in the Great Disruption, this sort of force happened where all of the continents of the earth were sort of thrown into different time periods, which I think is a great idea for a book and it's also very complex because no one knows what period they're in at any time. Like, you can tell them on maps, but you can't actually, you're thrust into a different age when you go somewhere else, and coping with that and the people I think is such an interesting idea. But point is, every continent has been thrust into a different time period, and they now need people to make maps of all of these places. Sophia Timms, our main character, is about 13 years old, and she lives in Boston in the age of 1891 with her uncle Shadrach, which I think is an interesting name, and he is this very, very famous cartologer. Not a cartographer, he makes maps, but he also studies cartology, which is the science of making maps and finding things, and he's an explorer, and he goes and he searches out things from different ages and collects these memories from people. The world building is just so good. And Sophia's entire family has been this family of explorers and cartographers and cartologers who are just learning and growing the entire realm of cartology and science and exploration. And she's not exactly destined for the same path, but she's very intrigued, having grown up around it her entire life. So she lives with her uncle because her parents long ago set off exploring and she hasn't heard from them since. So one day, the borders to where she lives, called New Occident, which is this age that Boston is in, the borders get threatened to be closed and you won't be able to get in or out. And so she and her uncle decide that they want to go off on a search and an exploration to kind of find her parents. However, then her uncle gets kidnapped and madness ensues. So teaming up with another character named Theo, who is sort of a boy from the carnival that she runs into, she and Theo sort of team up to go and find her uncle and carry out the message that he left for her at the time of his kidnapping. And along the way, they meet some very interesting pirates and other cartologers and botanists and other map makers, and they travel across the whole of sort of the North American continent, really, by train and by boat and by these other things that are like land boats that are made of trees, and they're incredible, and they go on this massive journey, and this is a very, very good adventure story. I think S.E. Grove has done a very good job, A, with the world building, like I've said, but also B, creating these understandable, relatable, jolly, very charming characters to help Sophia in her quest as she looks for her Uncle Shadrach. Many of them are well-intentioned, and often they're fairly well developed. I think I saw on Goodreads that this is going to be a series, and I think the ending is great. It sets it up for a series in a way that doesn't have a lot of poignant resolve, but sort of just leaves you, it sort of cuts off. a little bit, is how I feel like it ends. And suddenly it just stops and you're like, oh, wait, there have to be more pages. Why are there more pages? But there's going to be another, and I will definitely be reading the next one. I also think that Sophia is a pretty smart girl. She's a pretty smart main character. She really likes school, she likes reading, she likes books, she likes maps, and she's pretty good at reading maps themselves, because there are different kinds of maps other than just paper ones. There are glass maps and metal maps and water maps and copper maps, and there's different ways to read all of them, and she's in the process of learning them. Another thing that Sophia does is she uses this deficiency that she has of being unable to keep track of time. Her internal clock really doesn't work like everyone else's does. She uses that to her advantage in a lot of instances. And I think that that's great that a character so young can kind of listen to the advice of other people and harness what they think is their deficiency to really create positive change for themselves. One thing I didn't really understand about this book was the little briefs at the top. They kind of look like Post-it notes made out of parchment in a way, and they don't always have something to do with the chapter that lies ahead. A lot of them are little bits of trivia from different fictitious books that characters have written, and some of them are just definitions of things, which are actually helpful to have, but I almost would have preferred a glossary in the back so I could look up what those things are, rather than putting them at the forefront of each chapter where they don't always have a purpose or a meaning. S.E. Grove's writing style in this book I think is pretty excellent. I think it's very suited for the age in which these characters are speaking and existing, and for the demographic that this book is definitely targeted for. I don't think it tries to be anything other than what it is, and I really appreciate that. And I also think she's very good at creating characters that make you a little unsure. Theo and Sophia meet quite a few extra people on their journey, and they're being chased at the time, so you never quite know who is in the pocket of the person pursuing them and who is actually just a nice person willing to help them. And I think Calixta and Burr, which are two people that they meet, are very well done characters. They were definitely my favorites throughout the book. I think that her characters, auxiliary or otherwise, are well thought out. That being said, I would like to see these auxiliary characters explored a little more in the next book, because I feel like they were just that. They were auxiliary, they served their purpose, they served it well, but I think if the next book had a little more to it in terms of their characterizations and personalities and pursuits and goals, that would just add to these stories that are sure to be told all together. So in conclusion, I want to give 5 out of 5 beautiful stars to The Glass Sentence by S.E. Grove. Definitely check it out if you want a good adventure book and you've read maybe Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. This is a great journey, a great world that S.E. Grove has built, and I want to say thanks to Penguin for giving me the opportunity to read it. I hope you're having lovely weeks and lovely lives, and I'll see you very soon with another review.